I'm here and pleased to basically report that as a result of all those efforts by the commissioners and various elected officials in Limestone County and the cooperation of the operator of LaSalle Corrections, that we are in a position to approve what seems like a complex and convoluted transaction, but I think one that will be very good for Limestone County and the stability of those jobs out there at that facility, and just the general economic health of this community. What I've done, Judge, in order to summarize what has been probably a year and a half's worth of work of this Commissioner's Court, a resolution that hopefully will summarize the events that have taken place, and ultimately will end up in authorizing you as county judge to execute the documents with LaSalle Corrections to convey the 22 acres in that detention facility to LaSalle to enter into a long-term contract with LaSalle Corrections and implement the economic development program that is aimed at assuring that we have jobs at federal wages out there into the future. So with that, and really not to deny anybody the opportunity to comment, but I think this really summarizes it. And I know the commissioners have been through these documents, but for the public record, I would like to read a resolution of the Commissioners Court of Limestone County, Texas, authorizing and approving the contract for the sale of real property, facility operation and management services agreement, and other matters related thereto. Whereas Limestone County has heretofore entered an order adopting an economic development program, entered an order adopting a request for sealed proposal procedure for the sale and lease of real property owned by Limestone County, issued a notice of sale of real property and proposed form of proposal for purchase for county property, obtained a survey of the property, and obtained a qualified third-party appraisal of the property, issued an order adopting the sale of real property for sealed proposal, published a notice of sale in the real property in a newspaper general circulation in the county on September 12th, 2020, timely received and publicly opened proposals for the purchase of real property at a duly posted meeting of the Commissioners Court held on October 6, 2020, accepted the proposal submitted by LaSalle Corrections 6 LLC to operate and manage the detention center in the county pursuant to Chapter 361.053 of the Texas Local Government Code, and the sale of property to LaSalle Corrections 7 LLC in accordance with the proposal specifications and economic development program project agreement. Whereas the project will be operated pursuant to a facility operation and management services agreement with LaSalle Corrections 6 LLC, whereas the project and transaction have been fully examined and discussed, copies of the proposed instruments previously have been made available to each member of this Commissioner's Court and presented for its consideration at this meeting, and the material provisions of such documents have been described to this Commissioner's Court and fully discussed at this meeting. Whereas this meeting is open to the public as required by law, the public notice of time, place, and purpose of this meeting was given as required by Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Now, therefore, be it ordered by the Commissioners Court of Limestone County, Texas, resolved that all of the facts recited in the preamble hereto are found and declared to be true and correct, and the preamble is incorporated into and made a part of this resolution. Resolved that the Commissioners Court hereby approves the contract of sale of real property in substantially the form and substantially to the effect presented to the Commissioners Court, with such changes herein as shall be approved by the officers executing, saying their execution thereof being conclusive evidence of such approval. Whereas that the Commissioners Court hereby approves the terms of facility operation and management services agreement in substantially the form and substantially effect presented to the Commissioners Court. Whereas the Commissioners Court hereby approves the terms of the Limestone County Economic Development Program Project Agreement in substantially the form and substantially to the effect presented to the Commissioners Court. Resolved that the Commissioners Court hereby approves the deed of trust in substantially the form and substantially to the effect presented to the Commissioners Court. Resolved that the Commissioners Court approves the terms of a lease agreement in substantially form and substantially effect presented to the Commissioners Court. Resolved that the Commissioners Court hereby approves the non-exclusive easement agreements for access in substantially form and substantially to the effect as presented to the Commissioners Court. Resolved that the Commissioners Court approves the special warranty deed in substantially the form and substantially to the effect presented to the Commissioners Court. Resolved that the Commissioners Court approves the bill of sale in substantially the form and substantially the effect presented to the Commissioners Court. And that the Commissioners Court hereby ratifies the U.S. Department of Justice, United States Marshal Service Modification Intergovernmental Agreement, Modification Number 2, effective November 16, 2020, in the form presented to the Commissioners Court. That the county judge is authorized to execute and deliver these agreements and all certifications or instruments described therein. Resolved that the county judge is authorized to make any and all actions, including but not limited to the execution and delivery of such additional documents, certificates, and instruments as such officer deems necessary to carry out and consummate the transaction described in or contemplated in the instruments approved thereby, or otherwise to give effect to the actions authorized hereby in the intent hereof, including but not limited to the execution and delivery of any certificates and representations. That all actions heretofore taken by the Commissioners Court or the agents of the county directed toward the project shall be and same are hereby ratified, approved, and confirmed in all respects. That if any act, section, paragraph, or clause provisions of this resolution shall be held to be invalid, the invalidity and unenforceability of such action, paragraph, clause, provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions of this resolution. Whereas that this resolution will take effect immediately from and after this adoption. If the court were to adopt this resolution, it would have the effect of transferring the facility in its grounds, that 22-acre tract out there, to LaSalle Corrections. It would put in place a long-term management and operation agreement. It would call for the lease of the maintenance shop for the use of the detention facility out there, and for the placing of the facility on the tax rolls, and also for the payment of the revenue to the county based on the per diem population, and other matters contained in the operation and management agreement. The agreement calls for the sheriff's signature on the operation management agreement. It calls for the signature of the clerk and the judge on the other documents. And with the adoption of this resolution, those folks will be authorized to proceed with the transaction. Questions? I know that was a mouthful, but I'm trying to sum it all up in a resolution.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion and we go ahead and approve that resolution.
Second. We do have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Is there any other discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass. And,
Thank you. I'll stand by to complete the execution. And again, thank the Commissioners Court for their good work on this. I think it's going to be really good for this community, and I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good job. And let me just say for the record, this will be something that will come out later, as soon as we can, to give the exact details of it. I know that you'll be very interested in it. But we've looked at this every way that we can as a commission. Myself, I'm trying to figure out, one thing I will say, that back in about March of this past year, I got a phone call from the south, and they said, we're closing down. We're going to send out notices to terminate all the employees out there that y'all have. We're going to give them a 60-day notice that they'll no longer have jobs in Limestone County. And they didn't take this commission long to get going on that and say, wait a minute, let's see what we can do. And so I want to thank all the commissioners here for the hard work that they did. heard. But we stopped from having an empty building out there to working a deal out with LaSalle that we will get $3.75 million cash. We will get $500,000 economic development incentive, is where they will keep at least 100 jobs at those federal wages for the next 5 years. Not to mention the city of Roseback will continue to get the water revenue, and that's substantial, by the way. Not to mention that Limestone, city of Roseback, the hospital district, not to mention the county, the school, will all start seeing revenue, because that entity will now be taxed. And trying to find out something, we went from closing down to having an empty building. And not to mention, we were still, even if they stayed there, we're still spending money every month, taxpayer dollars every month to keep that thing floating. At one point in time, it was as much as $35,000 a month we were spending. So now we won't be spending anything, and we'll be receiving monies each month, possibly even as much as $300,000 a year we'll receive from them in the future. So it's very, very attractive for the citizens of Limestone County, and I can't say thank you enough to these commissioners for the hard work that they put in. That being said, we'll go ahead and get a couple of items done. We've got just a couple of minutes before, I tell you what, let's take a quick recess and we'll start back at 10, in about 5 minutes, right around 10 o'clock. And we'll have our open hearing to discuss the closing of the vote. Okay, we'll go into recess.
Gotta go on.
Yeah, still got it.
Yes, I do.
Herb, don't take the wood nickel now.
I'm not, I'm gonna go spread these documents out of here. Really do.